Well, the problem is, as you know, for years it kept dropping interest rates, and now Powell's raising it. The real problem is the bond market's crashing. And the bond market is systemic, as you know. I mean, I'm concerned about IRAs, pension plans, and all that. So this is more than I'm concerned, should I say. Buy silver, buy gold, because when it first started coming on, I think this was $3 and this was $50, and now it's $2,000. It didn't get any bigger, Neil. Now, the thing that I see is that the Fed and the FDIC are signaling hyperinflation, which makes gold and silver even better, because this thing here is trash. They're going to print more and more of this fake money. And that's what the Fed and the FDIC is signaling. We're going to print as much of this as possible to keep the crash from accelerating. But they're the guys who are causing it. Well, they have to bail out now, which is not quite legal anymore. But as I said, they're going to print more and more of this stuff, and it makes this stuff gold. And I think this is the best investment of all, is silver, because every Tomahawk missile has 30 pounds of silver in it. Every time they push that missile button, 30 pounds of silver disappears. So we're in serious trouble. And the Fed and the FDIC are signaling we're going to do whatever it takes, and that means print more of this stuff here. Well, let me say it again. The problem is the bond market. And my prediction, I called Lehman Brothers years ago, and I think the next bank to go is Credit Suisse, because the bond market is crashing. All those bonds, let's say you're getting paid 5% for a bond and it goes to 10%. The 5% bond crashes. And the bond market is much bigger than the stock market, as we know. And they're what they say, the firemen and the arson. And that's why I said the biggest problem, as you know, is the bond market, which is the biggest market in the world. And all the countries of the world are in US bills, T-bills and T-bonds. And we had the BRICS nations coming up, and they hate us, and they might switch to the Chinese gold, yuan. So we're in serious trouble. The US dollar is losing its hegemony in the world right now. So, and they're going to print more and more and more of this, trying to keep this thing from sinking, because our debt to GDP is over 130. And every time they raise those interest rates, America's taxpayer gets hammered. And my concern is the pensions are in trouble, because they're loaded with bonds also. And my generation, the boomers, we're starting to retire. So this is the perfect storm in many ways. So like I said again, I think the Fed and the FDIC signaled they're going to print again, which makes stocks good. But this little silver coin here is still the best. It's $35, So I reckon anybody can afford $35, and I'm concerned about Credit Suisse. I've been tracking this since I was a kid, since I was 17. 1964, President Johnson put the silver dollar and made it fake silver dollars and dimes and quarters. So that's why the American coins have the copper tinge around it. It's called, fake money. But what's happening is that so the BRICS nation are coming, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now Saudi Arabia coming after us. What's happening is that in 2017, the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, made gold Tier 1 asset. See, up until then, the U.S. Treasury was Tier 1 assets. So the whole world is filled with U.S. treasuries and bonds. And as you and I have talked over the years, I don't like treasuries and bonds, and because they're fake. So what's going to happen is when they keep raising interest rates, those treasuries they're becoming worthless. Let's say you have a treasury at 5% or a bond at 5%, and the interest rates go to 10%. It's going to collapse the system. So like Japan, which has had quantitative easing for years and years and years and years now, is filled with U.S. treasuries. So is China. So is the Fed. And so what just started to happen, a few months, 2017 again, there was a reverse repo. And a reverse repo was what happened just before 2008 in America. And a reverse repo is very simply this, is what happens is the Fed will give money to, let's say, a tier one bank, like let's say Bank of America. A reverse repo is this. So if a Fed gives money to Bank of America, that's called a repo. So they're backing up Bank of America. A reverse repo is Bank of America and all the tier one banks give it back to the Fed. They don't want the money. They don't want the bond. And it's not they don't want the bond. When they give the money, when the bank, let's say Bank of America gives the money back to the Fed, that's saying we don't want to lend money anymore because it's an indictment. Andy Schectman says this. He says it's an indictment of the U.S. economy. We're going down. Now, if that goes down, to keep raising interest rates, all those bonds will crash because, who wants a 5% bond when you get a 10% bond? And the rumor is, this is according to Andy Schectman, a long shot is this: Japan may join the BRICS, Brazil, India. And what will happen is then, instead of a bailout, bailout's what happened with Lehman Brothers in 2008. And so the taxpayer gave money to Lehman Brothers. What will happen is this: there'll be a bail-in, which happened in Cyprus in 2008, is Bank of America, when they give all those treasuries back or the bonds back to the Fed, people will run on Bank of America, and Bank of America will say, so you and I go to the bank and say, we want our money back. We want our savings back. And Bank of America says, our door is shut because there's a run on the bank. But guess what? Instead of your cash or your savings, we'll give you back stock in Bank of America. That's a bail-in. Now, I hope it doesn't happen, but that's what I was writing about. So as you know, I'm a huge gold, silver nut. And I would rather have silver right now, which is the biggest bargain in world history today. It's real estate was my generation's investment because it was debt. For your generation, it's silver, because today in America, it's cost me $30 to buy a silver eagle. $30. This stuff is trash. This is trash here. Cash is trash. So that's a bail-in, bail-out. That's what happens. You have a repo and a reverse repo. So the reverse repo is the banks are giving back the money to the Fed. We don't want it. I own Bitcoin, but I took Bitcoin as a technical trade. It went up to 20,000 a while ago and then dropped. When it dropped, I bought it. But right now, I don't know. Just yesterday, a crypto bank crashed. I don't even know that. Silver Bank or Silvergate crashed. So everything is coming down. I hate to be Chicken Little and bearer of bad news, but that's why on my tweet, I was begging people, especially your generation, you got to change your thinking. Get rid of that mantra: go to school, get a job, work hard. Buy stocks and bonds, save cash. 3 times, Andy Schectman, the smartest guy I know, a 3 times crash is coming. First of all paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. Second, real estate. Third, and I've always said cash is trash. I hope I'm wrong.